Hi, it's Alaska Granny. I'm out at Granny Camp, which is my Alaska off-grid cabin. I love coming out here and spending time by myself or enjoying time with friends or family. But today I'm out here by myself with my little dog Teddy. And he was barking up a storm the other night at a bear, and as my son pointed out, the dog is making sure that you have no bear encounter or invasion. So yeah, thanks Teddy. Today I wanted to talk about the day-to-day emergencies, the things that why we want to be a prepper. It's not just for an apocalypse or the end of the world as we know it, but SHTF could be something as simple as a job loss, or your children are sick and you can't go to work, you don't have daycare, maybe there's a winter storm, a power outage, your water is contaminated or stops running. Those are simple everyday things that happen to all of us when we least expect it. Those are critical reasons why you might want to be a prepper. And if you haven't done any preparation, there are very small steps you can take. It's building on steps, one step at a time. You do a little more, and before you know it, you're a full-on prepper. You're prepared to face anything. You don't want to, but you'll be able to. So think about, first of all, having enough food. You want to have some emergency food. It doesn't have to be emergency food. You just need to have extra food that's on hand in your pantry that you can go and make a meal on any day, anytime. You want to have things like boxes of cereal, open and eat granola bars, foods that don't require any cooking. You can grab something and eat it and get going. Also have some very simple, basic canned foods that you could heat them up, but if you couldn't, you'd still be okay. And then look at some of the very easy to prepare, maybe just add water, just do a little bit of cooking. Have those kind of foods, a lot of those foods, days worth, weeks worth, and maybe even a few months. But don't choose foods that you don't want to eat. If you're in the store and you see, oh, something I like to eat, something I don't like to eat, reach for the thing you like to eat. I don't understand people saying, in an emergency, you'll eat anything. Yeah, well, I'd way rather eat what I like, and it's my choice what I bring home and add to my food storage stockpile. So think about that. If it's just cheap, it doesn't mean it's something that you want. If you could have spent 10 cents more and bought something you enjoy, just do it. It's worth it, because then you'll actually use, rotate, and replace those food items. Then you want to make sure that you have some stored drinking water. If your water becomes contaminated or stops running, then you still have some bottled water. You can still get a drink of water. You can still cook a few just add water foods. You can wash a few dishes, wash your face and brush your teeth. You can clean up a little mess if you need to, if you have some water set aside. You need to have a minimum of 2 gallons per person per day. So if you have a large family, you're starting to look at you need to have a lot of water. Then when you have filled up all the spaces that you can store water, then you want to start looking at ways to purify water. Get a simple water purification system. Learn how to purify water with bleach. Get some of the drops or tablets that you can just add into contaminated water and make it safe to drink. Those are just simple things that keep your life going safely on a day-to-day basis. Perhaps you live in an area where they have something like a hurricane warning and they tell you to get these things. I don't understand then why, if you live in hurricane country, there are lines at the stores and they run out of water. Everybody who lives there already knows that could happen. Why aren't you just prepared? And then if you have those items, you don't need to go to the store. You don't have to worry about going out in an emergency. You don't have to fight over the last bottle of water or a can of soup. If you already are prepared, you can stay safely at home with your family. Go over the list of just basic tools that you need to keep your family running smoothly. Do you have can openers? Do you have flashlights? Do you have batteries for those? Do you have a pair of pliers, a screwdriver, a hammer? Basic tools that allow you to maintain the things that you need, open the food that you need to, fix something that falls apart. Why wouldn't you want to be able to do that? And with a few simple tools, you can. Then say there's an emergency and you still want to eat. Do you have a camping stove? You can get something as simple as a butane stove like I've been using out here at Granny Camp. It's just like using a gas stove at home. You put in the little canister of butane, turn on the stove, and you have a way to cook your food. Stick a pot on it, get going. And it's so simple. They're not very expensive. They're very reliable. One of these battery banks came in so handy on my trip overseas to Asia because, like, say you're in an airport, they don't have all the plugs available like we would have, we get used to. We get spoiled. And every plane doesn't have those little chargers. So these are nice. So I decided I need one out at Granny Camp because I don't have any electricity out here. So when I'm out here, if I have a gadget that needs to be recharged, I can do it. So if you rely on having your phone or your gadgets charged up, get something so that if you're away from home or the power stops running, you can still charge up the electronics that you rely on. Something else I bought to have at home and at Granny Camp is a fire blanket. These are made out of fiberglass, and so what happens is if you have a fire, say on your stove or your barbecue or your space heater, you open this up, you fold it out, and you toss it over the fire, and it will put it out. Now, my son warned me that he bought several of these, and he wanted to see what they were like, and he opened them up, and he said, don't open it unless there's a fire, because when you open it, the fiberglass goes everywhere, and they actually work. And he is very intent on doing his research on fire suppression since his house burned completely down a few years ago. And so I completely appreciate that he does the research on these and then helps share that information with me. So I ordered several of these. You can see that the directions on them are very clear. You would open it, you would drape it down, and these are very handy. And they have 2 tabs on them that you would pull this down, pull it out. They also have a hook. You can hook them in your kitchen, by your barbecue, any place that you would want one in a hurry. So I have one out here at Granny Camp now because I cook on my butane stove and I also have a space heater and I don't have electricity, so I rely on other types of gadgets and gizmos, so this one's going to be handy. Put your personal safety as a huge priority. Make sure that you have things like smoke alarms with fresh batteries in them and a first aid kit, and then lock your doors and pay attention to your surroundings. Just doing that can keep you safe for free. Something else I bought for Granny Camp is just a little tea kettle. Sometimes we just want to boil water and it isn't as convenient to heat water in a pot. It's easier to pour it out of a kettle. So I bought this to have with my butane stove. And then something that I did learn was that the handle still gets hot. You'd think it wouldn't because it looks like that type of handle on a pot that doesn't get hot, but it does. So whenever you get one of these gadgets, proceed with caution. Make sure that you're as safe as possible. How easy is some simple cooking with an emergency stove? Let's go ahead and prepare a little basic meal on the butane stove out at Granny Camp. I have 2 cans of food that I need to rotate, and one of them is a can of steak and potato Campbell's Chunky Soup and a can of mixed vegetable medley, but I'm only going to use about half of this can simply because it would be too much. So I'm going to open these up, put them together in the pot on my butane stove, and I'm going to have a nice vegetable, steak, and potato meal. Here's my kitchen at Granny Camp. I have a sink, but it doesn't have running water, so I have containers of water. And then when you wash, it goes down into a bucket. Then I have my little camping stove. And of course, if you're going to be cooking out of canned foods, you need to have some great can openers. So I have one for a pull top can. And what I've discovered is you pop this up and then you rock them forward. Oh, not quite so hard. That was a difficult angle, sorry. Let's wash that off. Good thing I already gave you a tour of my sink. That's the first time I rocked them too hard. Yeah. I'm trying to do it with the camera, and so the angle wasn't so great. Anyway. And I'm going to open my veggies. Make sure you have can openers that actually work. If you have some that are janky and don't work very well, replace them. Life is too short not to be able to open your can. Also, always make sure you look under the lid. I had a bad experience recently. So I'm going to drain some of that liquid off. And I'm only going to use about half of this one. Now this is the mixed vegetable medley, which also already contains potatoes. Some of them just have veggies and no potatoes, but I thought this one would pair nicely with the steak and potato soup. So when you want to use a butane stove, your canister has this little notch in it of fuel, and you stick it in here with the notch going to the front. And then you push down the lever, and did you see it pulls the can in, then the can is secure. Then you just close that section and go ahead and light it. See how you turn it till it clicks and the stove is lit. And they're that simple. Now I'm going to add my chunky steak and potato soup. Going to add half of the mixed vegetable medley. And then just heat it up, and I have a nice meal out of Granny Camp. Anybody can do it. Look who's waiting for a treat. You hungry? You hungry? Tay hungry? I'm making dinner. You can see it's heated through. Dinner is served. Turn off the stove. And look how delicious that is. So simple. And that's how you can be ready for everyday basic emergencies. Get some emergency supplies. Be prepared for the everyday emergencies. Don't be caught off guard when you could for just a few dollars and a little bit of effort. Be prepared to face the things that happen to all of us at some time in our life. I hope you'll like my video, share it with someone else you think might find it interesting. Please subscribe to the Alaska Granny channel. Teddy loves Granny's cooking. Is it good? Is that good?